Hi, I'm Jim, and welcome back. Today we're diving into one of the more exciting features in StarCitizen, base building. Now, base building is going to be one of those areas of the game that affects every player, whether you're a solo player or part of a large organization, whether you're an industrialist or PvP focused. Establishing your own outpost or home will undoubtedly be a game changer. Let's explore the ins and outs of creating our own structures, what we know about the process, and how it could affect gameplay in the future. First though, let's talk about what base building in StarCitizen actually entails, from placing modular buildings to setting up defensive structures and managing resources. Base building offers a wide range of possibilities for players to create their own unique outpost. Whether you want a simple mining outpost or a full-fledged fortress, the devs have promised to provide the tools to make our visions a reality. And with the upcoming 3.24 patch and its addition of player hangars, I think we'll get our first in-game glimpse of what having a place of our own could look or even feel like. Now, I do feel like what a lot of people look for in ships will largely be filled by player-owned structures, instead of with any particular ship. It seems so many are looking for a ship like the Kraken or the Pioneer, and imagine living out of that ship, and while yes, I believe they will be able to do just that, I also think that many would much likely be happier with a smaller sized vehicle paired up with a reasonable outpost suited to their niche or needs. But with any real estate, virtual or real, the most important thing will always be location, location, location. Choosing the right spot for our base is going to be crucial. We'll have to consider factors like resource availability, proximity to trade routes or hubs, environmental hazards, and to be frank, just general security. Each planet or moon in the verse will offer unique challenges and benefits to setting up our homes there. Now, CIG has given us 3 different types of systems: high security, low security, and no security. Each of these location types will come with different advantages and disadvantages to owning a base within them. And those are all mainly wrapped up around the risk versus reward type categories. A base in high security will be invulnerable, but will give us access to poor resource locations. You'll have to pay an upkeep fee or tax to maintain the location, or it'll become derelict and wither away. It's considered more of a low risk, low reward location. Low security systems will offer better resources in general than a high security one. However, the base is not invulnerable, but it will still spawn NPCs to help defend the location, as well as the player will have the ability to construct defensive structures to help protect the location. It's a medium risk, medium reward location, taxed by whatever faction or gang owns the area, but I'd imagine those taxes are probably far less than the equivalent that you would see in a high security system. And finally, with the no security, we'll be able to claim for free. However, the game will offer no assistance in the protection of the outpost. Protection will come entirely from either the player or the organization will be responsible for any and all defense. You will, however, have access to likely the richest deposits of resources, and you'll pay no NPC tax. Now, this is just what we've been told about the areas, but it's not hard to speculate that the barrier for entry will be far lower in setting up an outpost in high security space than it will be for low or no security space. You won't likely need to own any vehicles associated with base building to find someone willing to contract out performing the task for you with their vehicle in a high security system. And if you want to build an XL base in high security, I don't think you'll need to have or own or have access to a Pioneer. It'll be far less expensive to contract the construction of a base in high security space than it would to compensate a player to risk their ship in a less secure system. Though I imagine these options still will be available, they'll just cost significantly more due to the risk involved with setting up in less secure systems. Also, when I spoke about no tax for the no security outpost, I added the word NPC for a specific reason. As I imagine, based off my experience in EVE, we will see the emergence of what are described as renters within StarCitizen. You'll have large and powerful player-run orgs that will own a no security system, either in whole or in part. Now, they may just control a planet or some of the moons and not the entirety of the system themselves, but they will be more than willing to let you carve out a piece of their property so long as you're willing to pay tax to their main organization. You will then likely fall under the protection of their organization so long as your dues are paid up each month, giving you access to better resources without having to directly fight to control them yourself. And if you don't pay up, well, then your base will just be their base, and they'll either use it themselves or choose to rent it off to someone else if that's a possibility. Now that we've decided on where to build, we need to decide on what to build. What's the purpose or our intended goal for our new home? Are we just going for a place to relax with the scenic view? Do we want a base to help with our in-game career focus? Are we looking for a place just to store and collect some resources? Do we want a trade post or to build and sell items? Because it sounds like we will be able to do all of these and likely more in-game. It sounds like the process to construct a base will be pretty straightforward. They are looking at 4 different types of equipment or vehicles used to construct 4 different size of structures, from small, medium, large, and to extra large. It looks like we'll be using a small hover trolley to build the small structures, while a land vehicle similar, or looks like it's actually larger than Ballista, will be used to construct small to medium sized structures. The Galaxy will support the ability to build from small to large sized structures. And the Pioneer will be able to build everything in the game from small to extra large structures. But prior to construction, we need to make a land claim, which will launch us into a new UI that would allow us to select the size of claim that we want to make. This UI will show us the price associated with the size of the claim we are going to make, along with the taxes associated to that claim. If we're in a lawless area or already own the land, it will just skip straight ahead to the base UI building. We'll be able to use this mode to mock up the placement of our base with telling us what resources are needed to complete the construction. We'll have to decide on what type of storage we want: the HABs, freight elevators, landing pads, resource collectors, hydroponics or medical labs, storefronts. All of these decisions. We'll also have to construct some sort of infrastructure, such as power generators that will all have their own benefits and balance. Solar panels will be great, but they won't produce power at night, or reactors that will require fuel to run. These will likely also be used to balance out the size of a base, as I'd imagine things like extractors that we saw will use large amounts of power to sustain. I think the same will be said with fabricators, as I imagine the power needed to convert raw materials into a ship will require a good deal of energy to accomplish. I expect to see certain buildings have other requirements, such as if you want to build hydroponics bay, you'll be able to, but you'll likely also need to build some form of well or water extractor to help sustain it. This will probably also restrict the type of planet you want to build this structure on. So while setting up a hydroponics lab on a planet that easily supports it means you'll likely just be one of many doing it and therefore limited in your earnings potentials. Versus if you set it up on a more remote and less hospitable location, while it's more difficult to sustain, your earnings potential will have a much higher ceiling. We've been told that blueprints will be required to produce every item in game, from decorations to ships, and I don't expect that to not apply to construction. So it's very possible we might see some types of rare base structures that offer benefits via either special stat bonuses like less power usage or an increase in production or collection rates to their base stats. And I think just like how we have different manufacturers for similar ship types, I fully expect to see that reflected within base structures as well. I think we should expect to see a varying number of styles, types for bases that come with differences beyond just a visual aesthetic. I think we're going to see a multitude of options that really let us customize each location specific to our needs, wants, and simply just what we can afford to have. Now, when we watched the videos from CitizenCon, we saw a decent amount of activity going on around the outpost. And I've always wondered, are these just to make the videos look more interesting, or do they intend to have NPCs actually walking around our outpost? Now, personally, I expect they do intend to have NPCs walking around their outpost. But I find myself then wondering, are they going to actually be performing tasks, or is it just a fluff, much like most of the NPCs we see are at current? We know they intend to let us hire NPCs to help crew our vehicles, so I don't think it's too much of a mental leap to expect the same to happen at our outpost. Are the NPCs going to have varying stats? Will one be better, say, at upkeeping and maintenance and another better at agricultural? Or will we just be hiring generic NPC number 1107813? Or are they going to be more considered unique? What happens if my base gets raided by another player? Can those NPCs be killed? Do they die? Do they respawn? Do I just have to replace them? We don't really know what this process is going to be like. Can they perform some of the more mundane, repetitive actions instead of having me to do it by myself? This is one of the areas I hope we get some more clarity on in the future, though I'd imagine this type of gameplay is pretty far out. I expect to get a much clearer understanding of the base building mechanics in general before we start to learn about how NPCs might be interacting with our structures. I mean, it's been a bit since we've heard much about NPC crews, so I don't expect any clear answers on that anytime soon. Now the big question is, when will we see base building? As much as I'd like to see base building sooner rather than later, I don't expect to see it in a game anytime soon, at least not at any real scale. At the last CitizenCon, we were told they were begin design in Q1 of this year, but given how long it takes CIG to develop other features, I don't expect to see any of this in 4.0. Now, I'm sure we'll get some assets that make us feel like we're getting it in its infancy, and I do believe they are working on some of the assets that we will see used in varying different ways, but I don't expect to see full outright player constructed bases until we're much closer to a full 1.0 release candidate. But what's your take on player structures? Could you see yourself spending more time in an outpost than you do flying around in your ship all day? What type of outpost would you expect to build for yourself or for your org? And if this is the type of content you like, consider giving me a like or sub. And if you stay to the end, well, thanks for the support. Consider joining our Discord that I've set up for the channel recently. But until next time, see you in the verse.